The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle, where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships. Or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
Do you actively stretch your habits? What does this even mean? Allow me to explain. You see, I use a formula that I had learned 4 years ago going through Wake Up Warrior and Warrior Week, and I have been on this relentless journey using this habits, these core 4 habits that I do every single day for the last 4 years. Now, over the last 3 years, once I kind of had these down, I've really been hacking away at these habits and continuing to grow and evolve them into my life. You see, for many of you listening to this, you may have heard me talk about this idea of core 4, these words like body, being, balance, business. This was the frame of the 4 areas of 4-dimensional living that was taught inside this program, which has been huge for me. It's been huge in my transformation process. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be where I was today without it. It has been like, even just moving to California, I think back of how many things in my life have changed because of these habits and these at the core of my life. So I've been doing this over the last 4 years. I've discovered that these were a great framework, but that they must also continue to change and evolve. Otherwise, I stay the same. You see, if my habits stay the same, how can I really evolve? How can I really continue to change? So as I looked at this, I started combining the learning of years of being an elite athlete, from boxing, Golden Gloves, to baseball, being on all-star teams, to wrestling, to track and field, to bodybuilding, to playing college football, to 20 years of being an elite personal trainer, owning my own business, what I learned going through Wake Up Warrior, and all of the courses, continuing education work I've done, experiential trainings and biohacking courses to create this program is what I call today Habit-Based Lifestyle. You see, this wasn't just started 4 months ago. I'd been working on this literally since I was probably 9 years old. That's how far I go back to beginning when I started boxing. But as I'm setting up my weekly habits, one of the problems I started to notice was my habits were no longer stretching me. They no longer were increasing my capacity. And I didn't feel like they were influencing my growth or my true potential that I was looking for. You see, one of the big problems with habits is it's one thing to learn. It's one thing to learn them, but they must grow in order for us to grow. In fact, my habits weren't stretching me to the point where I was feeling any type of resistance. And as I began to look at my habits, I started to see a pattern. Most of my habits weren't stretching me to a place of any type of resistance. And I would say they were actually a little bit more passive than anything, than much resistance. And you see, this is where we begin to fall into this painful place. We can fall back into boredom, or we can fall back into burnout. We fall back into old routines, old behaviors, and old habits. And this begins to affect other areas of our life. Maybe even going back to an old weight, going back to an old way that we used to eat. Maybe it's going back to an old way that we used to feel disconnected in our marriage with our spouse, or not having sex frequently. Possibly even going back to the decisions we made as a businessman and putting ourselves into financial scarcity This is why long-term change is so hard. Our brain is actually programmed to go back to the old version of ourselves. Because this is where we're the most comfortable. This is where we find comfort. And our reptilian brain wants to go back to the place where we can find the most comfort. But what if there was another way? What if you could learn how to constantly adjust your habits so no matter what diet, what workout, what thing you were doing with your spouse, you were constantly evolving, constantly changing with these habits? You see, I'd like to share with you a couple of things that I did this Sunday that really helped me start to see how I could continue to do this. And I've really done this throughout the last 3 years, 3.5 years, but I caught myself this weekend in this place. And I want to be able to share it with you. So can I share it with you? So as I began setting my habits for the week, I started adjusting them to push me beyond my normal comfort zone, my normal capacity to begin to stretch me just a little bit beyond what I was doing the week before, just a little bit, enough to feel a little resistance, sort of like when you'd stretch. You know, this week I began asking myself a different question. My first example is this. I asked myself, what would have to change with my habits to feel this slight resistance? What would have to change inside of my habits? So one of the things I started to do was add some supplements, add like one supplement to my supplement regime. It wasn't a lot, but it was small. It was a small amount. And that small amount done over a certain amount of time is a huge change. In fact, think about this. We are programmed to think that our habits are supposed to be hard, difficult. But I want you to consider this. Habits are not meant to have massive resistance. Habits are not meant to be hard. They're not meant to be difficult because we won't keep them up long term. So maybe if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I just can't keep up with my habits, that probably means you need to simplify them. Because this is where most people will fail in setting up their habits. They make them too hard, too difficult. They feel this massive resistance and they never actually get started. They never actually start. You see, there's a lot of power. There's a lot of flexibility to be gained by slightly stretching ourselves beyond our normal resistance or our normal capacity. This is what begins to increase our capacity, our flexibility in our daily and weekly habits, and our ability to continue to grow and expand and increase our range of motion, our range of capacity in our habits is one of the most powerful things that we can do. Because I continue to change as a man, you can continue to change as a man or a woman, and you can continue to evolve in that same place. And if I continue to make these slight adjustments every single week, every 30 days, every 60 days, I don't have to make them every single week. But as I continue to make them for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days at a time, I get a different result. I get a completely different trajectory of growth. And this allows me to grow to an optimal level and increase my potential as a human being. So where in your life can you begin to stretch your habits? Stretching them to where you feel a slight bit of resistance. Maybe it's in your nutrition. Maybe it's in your workouts. Maybe it's in your marriage. Maybe it's in your business. Could just be in yourself and just taking some time to meditate and be with yourself. I can't tell you how powerful that is. But the next example is this. What adjustments can you start making today in that place? And I would highly recommend, if you haven't done this, just make one slight adjustment. Don't go change everything. Make one small adjustment that's simple and easy for you to do and that you can do consistently for the next 30 days. Thank you for joining me today on our show. If you're looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and hundreds of other people in the Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group, my Facebook group, where I'll be dropping daily habits, tips, tricks to begin living this lifestyle we call habit-based lifestyle. If you have any questions, any comments, requests, feel free to contact me, Jesse@habitbasedlifestyle.com. You can also check out my website, habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have an awesome day.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse